On Point is brought to you by Dargin Global.
Good evening. Welcome to On Point. I'm your host, Dennis Chung. I must apologize for Patria K, who unavoidably could not be with us here today. Before we get into the meat of the matter, I just want to make a few comments on a few things. This year is an election year in many respects. I mean, not just here in Jamaica, but overseas in the United States, we've been seeing a lot of the political turmoil happening there. They just came out of impeachment hearings, and now the voting is taking place for the Democratic presidential aspirant. And what is showing is a lot of flaws in the politics and the electoral system, which people would normally say is for countries like Jamaica, but it is very evident in the United States. Here on the local front, we see it charging up also, where we're starting the budget debate, which this week has opened. We expect going into an election year that this budget is going to be used to sort of butter up the electorate. But very importantly also, we've seen where a lot of positions are being taken. We saw that Carrie Douglas, for example, one of the more prominent councillors in the PNP, has crossed the floor. We see the election machinery heating up on both fronts, on both parties. And what we're hoping for, and this is what I really want to discuss, is that the election fever does not derail us. We've come far away from 2013 in terms of our economic prosperity. And we want to ensure that the election does not put a stop to that, particularly given that in this year we expect the global economy to slow down, and also the external shocks of things like the coronavirus. So during the show we'll be discussing this novel coronavirus and how it has originated out of China and how it is impacting the local scene. But first, let's take a look back at some of the top business stories of the week.
At number 5, a song so catchy it went viral. Now the South Korean producers of the tune Baby Shark are having their day in court. They're being sued by entertainer Johnny Only, who says he came up with his version of the song in 2011. But the South Korean producers say they based their song on a popular campfire tune. The case has been handed over to a copyright commission in South Korea to decide. At number 4, a severe drought in central Chile is entering its 10th year. This is the country's longest ever dry spell, which has left animals dead, many reservoirs dry, and almost 500,000 people without direct access to water for drinking and domestic use. At number 3, the Statistical Institute of Jamaica Statin is now conducting the first ever global services sector survey. Statin says JAMPRO commissioned the survey in response to the growing demands for actionable empirical information regarding the global services sector, which includes business process outsourcing. The study is intended to produce a characterization of firms and identify the segments in which they operate, capture information on capital expenditure and main constraints to growth, and identify the main characteristics of the workforce, including the numbers of workers, average salaries, and the extent of internal and external on-the-job training. At number 2, the world's largest mobile phone showcase, Mobile World Congress, has been cancelled over coronavirus concerns. The event organizers say it had become impossible for the event to go ahead in Barcelona. Earlier this week, several high-profile exhibitors pulled out of the annual event, citing coronavirus fears. But Spain's health minister has urged people to remain calm, saying they should trust in the Spanish health system and take decisions based on scientific evidence. The Mobile World Congress was due to be held in Barcelona from February 24 to 27. More than 100,000 people usually attend the annual event, about 6,000 of whom travel from China. At number 1, the government plans to spend $852.7 billion during the 2020-2021 fiscal year. $778.4 billion has been allocated for recurrent expenses and $74.2 billion for capital development projects. Details of the projections are outlined in the estimates of expenditure tabled in the House of Representatives on Tuesday by Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Nigel Clark. The Ministry of Finance and the Public Service gets the largest share of the budget, with $403 billion for recurrent expenses and $7.9 billion for capital expenditure. A large portion of the sum will go towards meeting Jamaica's debt obligations.
And when we come back, we're looking at the coronavirus, or the novel coronavirus, and what it means for trade and business locally. Stay with us right here on Point. Welcome back to On Point. The outbreak of the novel coronavirus is causing fear and panic around the globe. It started in the province of Wuhan in China and has been causing some amount of disruption in global trade and production. Here's more on the new virus and its impact on trade.
The novel coronavirus has been spreading around the world, causing much fear and anxiety. The new strain of the virus originated in China's Wuhan province and has already resulted in tens of thousands of infections and hundreds of deaths. It's estimated that some 60,000 persons in China are suspected to have the virus, while about 1,100 have died. Several countries have evacuated their citizens from China, while others, like Jamaica, have chosen to put in place travel restrictions. As it relates to commerce, the scope of the impact on the global economy is yet to be fully determined. However, with 40% of air and land transportation grounded in mainland China and production halted for many major corporations, analysts say the economic impact could be devastating.
And joining us now to talk about the impact of this virus through local lens is the president of the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, Mr. Richard Pandue. Welcome to On Point.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm glad to be here.
Well, you are the man to speak about this thing because you are in charge of manufacturing and export.
Correct.
The economy has seen 19 consecutive quarters of growth, and there has been many chatter over the period as to what would cause growth to slow, but this one looks like it.
Yeah,
this looks like it can have a serious impact.
At the end of the day, Jamaica is an open economy, and we're highly vulnerable to external shocks, and this is an external shock.
Yeah.
The extent of it is still to be determined because there are so many moving parts on this. Now, when you watch what's happening in the global arena, every day you're getting new information, new news. But funny enough, this shock could be interesting because it could be positive and negative in some aspects.
Positive? Why say positive?
Well, you know, I mean, if Jamaicans were to step back and look at what has happened to us over the last 6 years with the whole fiscal stability and etc., a big part of the equation was the drop in world oil price.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people forget that part of the equation.
So
with what's happening in China with the coronavirus, there's now a glut of oil again in the world market because China is such a big user of all these commodities. The oil price is dropping again. And actually went below $50 at one point yesterday on Monday. So this will have a knock-on positive effect on the Jamaican economy. So, and many of the commodities are now trending down because China, I mean, with what, over 15% of the world global GDP, huge consumer of goods. The minute they slow down, glut comes in the arena. And Jamaica, which is a highly import-dependent economy, stands to benefit from some of that. You know, that's the positive side of it. I mean, if they could take such an angle on the corona.
I mean, I never really thought about that angle, Richard, but you're right, because oil imports is really what holds us to the fire if the prices go up.
No, absolutely. That's one of the biggest risks to Jamaica economy, the price of oil, which is why we have so much effort has been made to diversify the energy base.
Yes.
But a lot of people keep forgetting that part of the equation. So I expect that to have a knock-on effect that is reduce our cost of energy, our cost of transportation. It could actually lead to a lowering of the input costs in the economy. That's the
positive.
That's the positive side.
Yeah.
On the negative side, I mean, On the negative side, China is such a huge part of the value, supply chain, But Jamaica, though, I mean, while we import from China in terms of raw material and equipment, is okay, but it's not phenomenal. I mean, that way, most manufacturers I've spoken to have alternative suppliers, have alternative countries and suppliers to source from. So we don't see that at this stage being a big risk, provided the virus remains predominantly based in China. If it spreads to Europe and US now, then it's a whole different ballgame. But as it is right now, being focused in China, we don't see a major supply risk. In terms of export, China only accounts for 2% of Jamaica total export. I mean, so it's the risk.
Again, it's not a big impact.
It's not a big impact. I mean, it's we have seen some unfortunate fallout for the lobster industry, for live lobster. B&D trawls have come out and reinforced.
Because we do export a lot of lobster to China,
in recent times. Live lobster is what's been affected because the restaurants are closed, people are going out. Frozen lobster can still go. But I mean, in the context of our overall economy, it's not a big risk. So that's what they're looking like.
On the negative side, though, I mean, the impact is really, if we were to get a case here and we don't handle it properly, then the tourism impact could be great.
The impact of coronavirus is going to be very dependent on how the government handle it. If the government comes out with a lot of transparency and confidence and showing that they have a handle of the situation, it will do a lot to pacify any fear and self-fulfilling prophecy effect, you know what I mean? If we come out and look like we're not handling it properly, they're going to set off panic, because on top of the coronavirus, Jamaica has been going through a series of health challenges.
The dengue.
And we have dengue still in the, dengue has taken second place, coronavirus and but dengue is still very much here. Our health system is under stress. And we have so many similar symptoms to coronavirus. You have hog flu, whatever. So that has to be handled very carefully. And I mean, I saw a classic case in Singapore where the government has come out very clearly, very forthrightly, telling people, wash your hands. Just we have this under control. You just do what you have to do, and just make sure we don't have panic and don't create a fear in the society. But we mustn't try to PR it away. Let's be very transparent and let's be very practical and pragmatic as we go about it.
But the tendency of our government, though, Richard, has always been to PR things away. I mean, I remember with the Chick-V, that was handled very poorly. The recent dengue one could argue was not handled well either, right? It wasn't very transparent. So what are your views? You have any confidence that they'll handle this one differently?
I remember Chick-V, I was living in Panama at the time, I wasn't in Jamaica, and I remember when I saw it happening in Central America and in Dom Rep, and I'd be asking everybody in Jamaica, you see this thing coming, and nobody reacted, and there was no movement. We waited too late to react, and then you suddenly you're on the back foot all the time. In the case of dengue, etc., I mean, I think the Ministry of Health is doing a really good job generally on communication. They're trying to communicate, they're trying to get the nation moving.
But initially there was a denial of
that's the instinct is, it appears generally in our society is to deny, hope it goes away, but then it doesn't go away, and then you start. And then we're waiting for these statistics from Global Health Organization. I think we should be reacting more proactively. I don't need to wait for the number to reach 10,000 deaths in China to react to Jamaica. Because we're so vulnerable, we need to escalate our threat level higher, and if anything, take it down. We shouldn't be waiting. We don't have the luxury of waiting with our small population and if our tourism industry get hit, my God.
We have a problem.
We have a problem. So I agree with you that in the past, our reaction has been we've been very reactive. I think with denial, I think this one, we can't do it though. I think it's important to come out strong, because when the government reacts is important because it influences how consumers react. We can influence how people react.
Although what I said, Richard, is that the Chick-V wasn't handled properly, and we said the dengue wasn't handled properly. But I think the government reaction when Ferguson was there at the time to the Ebola was handled well though.
Honestly, I'm not really familiar. I wasn't in Jamaica much at that time, so I don't remember all the details. But I think we have the capacity within our people to react properly. I think that in a case like the coronavirus, etc., this has to take a bipartisan and a total ownership approach, because this is us protecting Jamaica. It's not, it's not going to affect green or orange differently. And any fallout in this economy going to affect all of us. So I really believe that is very important, and businesses need to need to move quickly. Some companies I've known have already escalated the threat level. So it's like a storm coming, and so it's like a hurricane warning at this stage. So they start sensitizing their employees. They start looking which employees can operate remotely. They start looking at how can they improve our raw material supply, so that if anything were to happen, you have enough stock to carry over for X period of time. And these are things that we need to start putting in place now. We need to start preparing for the worst. And if it does happen, thank God. But if it happens, at least we are prepared. We can't wait.
So has the JMEA actually done any communication advising members how they should prepare and all of that and deal with? So
we're having a board meeting this week, and the idea is to then send out a communique to our membership. Already at the board and director level, we have communicated, and as I said, we have indicated that companies should escalate the threat level within the organization to a yellow, at least from meaning a warning, getting ready stage. And the biggest potential impact with Chick-V, let's take Chick-V. A lot of people don't realize the cost to the economy because of the productivity decline when employees just couldn't come to work. They were sick. There are companies reporting more than 50% absenteeism. In a manufacturing environment, a lot of it is shift operation. This is a big risk we face. So we need to start looking now, how do we protect our most important asset, our people? Because they don't come to work, we're done the production.
So what would, I mean, a lot of the people in the workplace actually live in conditions that are not conducive to a healthy environment.
A very communal setting.
A very communal setting, multiple people in bedrooms, you know, not to talk about in a house, the amount of persons, even children, you know, are not fully protected. So how do we deal with this, and what is your advice to companies? Because at the end of the day, it's their workers and their productivity.
And so now, every worker you have to see the family behind them, because everything will impact. So we have to be educating our staff to make sure that they're educating their families at home about the necessary hygiene, hygienic things you have to do. How can we help them to be better prepared? Because now it makes sense to invest in health in that, you know. Because, you know, do you need sanitizer at home? Can we, we're saying to people, we are going to help you get those things into your home. Because if the home is not healthy, the employee won't be healthy, and then you get a, you know, effect right through the system. So it's a lot of this is going to be around education, because the coronavirus in and of itself can be managed. I mean, what is not managed when you start having people not looking after themselves, spreading it, because it's very contagious. When you look at it based on the medical things, even from our own medical association, it suggests that it can be managed if we take the right precautions.
But then we have, as I said, the issue here of the type of communities we have. And, you know, one of the things I always say to people, even with garbage collection and policing, one of the biggest issues that we have
is access.
Is access to these communities and the way these communities are structured. And I don't think we understand how much the issue of informal settlements has affected our country and our progress.
And I agree with you, and I mean, and also the way we socialize. You know? I mean, when you go out there to Jamaica and say, listen, ease up off the dance and the crowd gathering for X period of time, people will come out and say, boy, you impact for business and you fight against small money when you're actually looking to protect. You know, it's a bigger picture you have to take now. So, you know, the discipline that exhibits in China to lock off towns and to get people to stay home or whatever, it's going to be a real
we don't have it.
We're going to be a real challenge here. And that to me is one of the concerns, which is why we have to start from now to put almost a lot of moral pressure on people, to say, listen guys, we're going to have to take some short-term hit to protect the economy and our people for the longer term, medium to long term. And that's my concern, our lack of discipline in that regard.
Yeah, and I'm happy you raised that point, Richard, because it's a serious problem. I mean, you hear stories of health workers turning up to inspect people's yards for mosquito breeding, and they're abused, eh?
I'm being stoned.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, that's just beyond comprehension. I mean, I don't know what kind of level of ignorance it have to take a man. Somebody's coming to help protect you from an illness, and you're chasing them. I don't know if we're missing something in the equation, because people don't behave. we assume people don't behave irrationally without a purpose, but I cannot begin to understand what the purpose could be.
But it's a bigger picture, Richard, and we're going past Corona thing now. We're talking about this indiscipline thing. Because I always maintain that the breakdown of what we're seeing in society in terms of the economy and everything comes back to discipline and order.
It's order.
So
you always talk about social order.
Yeah. If we don't address the social order issue, then we're really way behind the 8 ball.
No, and we are way behind the 8 ball. I mean, it's ironic that we're now putting we're spending more money on security than ever, national security, than many of us can remember in our lifetime.
And all in your businesses also.
Privately, publicly, we're spending it's sucking out 5% of our GDP estimated per year. The GDP we're looking to aspire to is right here just in the insecurity issue. And I mean, a lot of it comes down to just the lack of social order and disorder, which comes back down probably to the underinvestment. We didn't have the fiscal space, and we're underinvested in health, education, and security. Chickens coming home to roost now. But I mean, I really believe that we cannot continue to expect our society to show economic development. Forget about activity now, just true development, if we're going to build it on a base of indiscipline. It just doesn't work.
But then, does it help that when a health crisis arises, for example, that whichever party is in opposition always try to make it look like it is the fault of the government? You know, you understand what I'm saying? And when you look in Parliament at how they behave, we're really not setting good examples for the society.
Well, you know, a political system, the difference between first and second prize is huge. If you're not the government, you're almost not I mean, in many ways, you've lost a lot of your relevance, you know? And the fact is that we're going to have to find a way. This coronavirus thing is bigger than a party, but so is the insecurity issue, so is a crime issue. But yet still we always find a way to make it green or orange. We're going to have to find out, and funny enough, the younger set of leaders, generations coming up, seem to be falling into the same mode.
Richard, hold that thought. Let's take a break.
All right.
And when we come back, we continue more with this interesting discussion. Welcome back to On Point. We're discussing the issue of the coronavirus and its impact on the economy and other issues with the president of the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, Mr. Richard Panduri. Richard, welcome back.
Thank you.
Before the break, you were getting on to another possible impact of the virus on manufacturing.
Right, so I mean, as it is right now, the immediate impact we have seen when we speak to our membership is that there's been a delay in shipments. So already our suppliers out of China, for example, the ones that are taking from there, have indicated that lead time should be doubled, because they're only returning to work now after extended Lunar New Year holiday. And they're also suggesting that there'll be an increase in price because they're having difficulty getting labor out, more expensive. So that's one aspect of it. But that's one aspect. In terms of one thing that I want to mention too is that on the shipping, a lot of our goods come in by containers, obviously. A lot of containers are now increasingly seeing the accumulation in China.
Right.
So you can find the supply, generally, trade movement is going to begin to slow down longer this thing lasts. And in terms of the economy, manufacturers are big and exporters are a big part of the economy. We depend on our consumers buying.
Yeah.
So I mean, and our consumers depend on the economy being active. You look at the cruise ship situation. It's 3 ships have been turned back in the Caribbean so far. One for gastroenteritis, which I don't know if in the past, if Corona was here right now, the probably would have stopped them. Well, that's 2 million visitors per year in Jamaica, right? But so, you know, the people curtailing their travel and also automatically curtailing consumption, the tourists and local people, is going to have an impact on demand. Consumption and demand for our companies. So that could have a dampening effect on production. So, I mean, the way I see it, I mean, over time, the risk increase that you're going to see a further contraction in production. And, but we have to manage it very carefully. But so we're seeing some risk, and we definitely have to manage it. But again, this depends, though, on, as a country, how we proactively react because we have to start dealing with this from now.
You talk about that, Richard, but there are a few ways also that apart from the airport, because people have been coming in, they've quarantined, they've isolated 2 people and quarantined others. Inevitably, if you sit on an aircraft with somebody who have it, most of the people might get it, or is a possibility. That's a good amount.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the physical interaction and how quickly you go and wash your hands and so forth. I mean, it's so it depends a lot, but you can't stop. We have the ports. We have this week alone, just going to in terms of entry. Jamaica has dozens of illegal ports right around this country, right?
Yeah, you're right.
So people are entering and leaving, not only at the airport and at the port, we know. So we have many points.
And what is being done about that? I mean, is there any monitoring happening of these illegal ports? The other issue is that someone raised an issue with me today that are we, the people like the policemen out there, the health workers, people who have, the government people who have to interact with the public, we're not issuing any protective gear to them?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, some of these discussions, I guess, I have to leave with the health officials. But according to now, what the news you're getting is that the mask itself is not a deterrent.
Right.
It's really the activity associated with hygienic conditions, etc. So I don't know what I hope there have been issued with is hand sanitizers and being given opportunity to keep.
But I doubt they're giving them things to them.
Yeah, no, I have our doubts. I mean, maybe by this meeting we're appealing to the relevant authorities to make sure they have it. We should be appealing to the hierarchy of the police, the military, the nurses, etc., to make sure they have it. I mean, you can imagine the health workers how scared they must be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there are countries like Hong Kong who their health sector went on strike until they shut down the border.
Yeah.
So you look at the men and women out there in essential services making sacrifice every day. And we see them and we forget the sacrifices they're making and their families are making.
Yeah.
I think we should do everything to make sure we protect them.
Yeah. The other thing is that at the airports, I mean, are we doing enough to address it? I mean, we're in a sort of chicken and egg situation because we depend so much on the flights coming in, but if we hear that there's someone possibly with the virus on board, would we be willing to turn back that aircraft?
Well, it's a tough one in the days. I mean, you put yourself, being in government is not an easy thing. The government are trying to manage, trying to manage the economy and trying to manage all the risk associated other things. And sometimes you have to make a decision that impact one. The truth is, at this point, the risk to country trumps any other decision. If a plane were to come here, there's a risk of somebody on board, we should not allow it. We should refuel it and turn it back.
And that is a policy. I think those positions the government should state up front as part of the transparency that, listen, this is our position,
Yeah, because I mean, it's, as even when the Chinese came that were turned back, you kind of wonder, they came off here, turned them back, but there are people on that plane too, How does that work? Are we tracking them to make sure everything is fine? And we don't have resources, We don't have the technology. There's a nurse at the airport literally saying, Dennis, what's your name? What's your address? You have any symptoms? They're relying on you, and then you leave, right? Now we can tracking them to make sure things are working out. So I am concerned about our border situation. The good thing is that in this side of the world so far, though, in the western side, the cases have been minimal. I mean, and hopefully it will continue to be so. Because that's a risk. The other restore economy is the U.S. If anything were to happen in the U.S.,
then we'd have a huge
and there's
problem.
a contraction in their economy, they're going to have a massive knock-on effect on our remittances, etc. So, fingers crossed that the U.S. doesn't suffer, and fingers crossed that our authorities and all of us will do what is right to make sure we protect what we have now. But I mean, the thing with Jamaica, though, sometimes we think that can't happen to us. And we continue to behave in a very, in a way that it just doesn't make sense.
You talk about that, Richard. I mean, the fact of the matter is that we could have a double whammy this year because already the global economy was projected to start declining this year.
Right.
Right.
A 0.3% decline.
And then if you have on top of that the impact of the virus, right? And we don't know what's going to happen geopolitically also because the Middle East situation is is not yet dealt with.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
So this leap year
I start with a bang. It's almost frightening. It feels like we've done a whole year in January alone. But we have the situation. The global economy is definitely going to be declining this year. The one thing I can say though, Jamaica economy seems to have always behaved differently from what's happening in the global arena, and we're still small. We're a very small economy, so you're hoping that the effect. I mean, we're on a trajectory that I believe. What are two things that are risk for us? The tourism, and remittances. Those are the big earners for us at this point in time. The manufacturing base, although important, and it's 8.5% of GDP, grew last year, is still small, right? And I mean, it needs to grow. Export is insufficient. So, but we have a lot of imports. So in many ways, it's an opportunity for us to step back and say, how do we ensure the security of our country? I was in Israel a year and a half ago, and we met with one of the ministers there, and he said, you know what? When people talk about Israel and security, they assume it's our armed force and whatever.
But it's food.
He said security is about securing our people, education, our water supply, our food supply. Security involves every aspect.
But on that aspect, you talk about security in terms of national security, food security, water. We haven't been able to deal with those things in decades,
And getting worse,
Yeah.
I mean, I heard Mark Barnett, the CEO for NWC, saying that we're losing maybe as much as 50% of the water in transmission.
Well, it was 70% at one point. So
when you think about what that means in a country where water, as a manufacturer, water is now one of my highest risks. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Based on what happened last year.
In a country like Jamaica,
in a country like Jamaica, water supply is now one of our highest risks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Land of wood, we can't take out the water, just pure wood. So we need to kind of fix some things that are going, and when times are good or okay, we get complacent.
Yeah.
And I think that what's happening with Jamaica now, with the entrenchment of the stabilization process, and a lot of indicators going in the right direction. Kudos to successive governments. There's an opportunity for us to work because we're so far behind everybody else that we shouldn't be celebrating too much. We should be saying, these are positives, how do we make it even better?
But Richard, and I'm glad you brought that up about the complacency, because when the economy started moving, I was always saying to people, listen, let's take advantage right now, because the time to save is when you're earning,
Right.
You can't save when you're not earning, right? But we haven't addressed the fundamental issues in the economy. We talk about the law and order issue, which is fundamental, right? Things like a good public transportation system, which will help you with your productivity and reduce your oil imports and all of that. Coming out of the 2013 IMF agreement, one of the critical things to look at was labor market reform. That has not been dealt with yet.
Right.
So we're coming out of a period of growth without addressing the things that would have caused us to grow more.
Right, and the term they use globally is about growth should be sustainable and resilient.
Yeah.
And I mean, are we creating sustainable and resilient growth at this point in time? I don't think the answer is a positive at this point.
Right.
We're having a lot of economic activity. We're having almost full employment of people now in terms of highest employment figure, etc. But it doesn't feel like it's resilient and sustainable at this stage. And one issue that we need to address, as I mentioned, the social order, is around education of our people. 70% of Jamaicans do not have any post-secondary school certification, zero. 15% of the workforce have certification. It means the productivity is at the lowest end. It means that we're at the lowest end of the value chain. And these are things, it impacts the way we interface with each other. I think some of the violence you see and some of those man does a kill one because they have two quarrel. I think it's a level of ignorance and just inability to express and to communicate and to have the discussion. So I think everything stems back. I think if we had to pick something, I don't like, when I hear people talk about look how much cranes you see, how much cars are import, but we look at our people. Our people is our most important resource. And people say that, but they don't understand what it means. Every youth, every man, every woman out there, you have to look at, this is a genuine resource for Jamaica. How do we make them better? Even if they're going to move to somewhere else to work, it's an export. Our remittance is 40% of our income. But I just believe that we just need to start looking at people differently. And I mean, we should not be losing 1,000 of our most precious resource every year.
Every year, to murder.
To murder. It don't make no sense.
Yeah.
It don't make no sense. I mean, everything comes back, we're talking about coronavirus, but everything comes back to discipline, education, ability to react and to be responsive in a proper way. And that is what you lack in Jamaica. Because you look and you know we have the capacity. And when we go abroad, everywhere you go, we have 2 Jamaicans that are the best workers ever. Yeah. Look at the places Jamaica have risen to the world. Look at how we have influenced the world. But you're still in our own yard.
We can't do it.
We can't do it.
Which speaks to the environment that you're in.
The environment is not enabling us to be the best people we can be.
But and that is an issue also why the manufacturing sector can't grow too, eh?
No, the manufacturing sector is anemic. I mean, it's while we have grown last year was a good year in terms of growth relative to other industries. We grew 4.9%, is what 81,000 people employed, second highest taxpayer in the country. But it feels like it should be a lot more. Yeah. I believe the GDP, our contribution to GDP should be in the range of 12 to 14%. We should be looking at 130,000 people employed in industry because the manufacturing sector is where you tend to get the middle class coming from.
Right.
Don't forget, in Jamaica, only 13% of our population is in the middle class. 78% is in the lower class. You can't grow any economy if you don't have a middle class that's driving growth. Same we talk about SMEs in manufacturing sector, you have to have a middle class. And that is what we're lacking, and that's why we're not getting the growth and the social order we need. Because the middle class is the one that tend to... You remember the teachers and the nurses and everybody? They create the order. We don't have that now. 78% of our people lower class, only 13% middle class. That's a damning statistics.
And no economy can grow without a middle class.
No economy. When the Indian president or prime minister was coming in, their emphasis was middle class. Yeah. When Obama was running the first time, he spoke about a lot of opportunity to take people to the middle class. Right. When the president of DOMREP was coming in, they spoke about growing the middle class. They're at 30%. They need to grow more. Or one Prime Minister Andrew Holness, the prosperity is about moving you from lower to middle class. You cannot grow your economy without a middle class.
Richard, very interesting conversation. And I think there's a lot more for us to talk about. We have to come back and we talk about a lot of these other issues because there's obviously a lot for us to discuss.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you to the viewers.
Yeah, man. Thanks for joining us here on Point. And when we come back, we'll take a look at the numbers and the word on the street. Welcome back to On Point. The novel coronavirus has been spreading rapidly worldwide, negatively impacting trade, economies, and even forcing companies to pause operations in China. Here are the numbers.
As a result of the widespread shutdown caused by the novel coronavirus, the Chinese economy is expected to grow by less than 4% for the first quarter of 2020. The virus is expected to also impact economic growth for the entire year, moving the projection from an average of 6% to 5.6%. The global financial and commodities markets are also feeling the brunt of the slowed production due to the virus. In the last 2 weeks, China's stock market fell by 8%. Crude oil hit its lowest in more than a year, falling by 15% in the last 2 weeks as a result of reduced demand from China. And copper has fallen by 13%.
Our On Point team hit the streets and asked, is the government preparing adequately for the possible introduction of the novel coronavirus in Jamaica?
No, because the reason why, there's not other persons that know what coronavirus is, or also they don't have enough information in relation to how to handle it, and there's not a lot of stuff put in place to deal with it.
I'm not sure if we're adequately prepared. However, I think he needs to, because not a lot of us know about it. We all know that it's happening there and it's coming, but we don't know much information. We don't have much information on it. We're just scared for not knowing the unknown.
Well, I would say we prepare. The government can't do everything. Him just have to tell you, say, boy, they are your year on social media and all over the news people them. So, are we prepare ourselves? That's the thing there. No, we have to protect ourselves. Them all right.
From say them do a thing what in our town, so we don't lock down the hospital and try to want more back a place for the coronavirus people them still. Well, we're making a step on them, have the airport them and them have the nurse and the thing them, so we're trying that thing, we're making a step.
I really don't think that they're adequately prepared, you know, because I think that coming even through the airport, they should be testing people's temperature, not just asking them alone if they've visited China. Because somebody else could visit China and they visit that person. They have a cough, no temperature, and I really think that they should do more. Hand sanitizer, you know, alcohol, spray down your hand and thing. You know what I mean? And really ask, not just if you go China, but if you work, like, I work around healthcare. I could have take care of a corona person and just decide if I come here, come dead. But you never asked me that.
Well, viewers, that was a very interesting discussion with the president of JMEA, Mr. Richard Pandui. We touched on a few things, but we came back. We started with the coronavirus and its impact and whether we're prepared or not. But you know what it really comes down to is our governance and how our government and public sector is prepared to deal with not just this, but other issues, the issues of law and order, the issues of discipline. That's really what it boils down to. And the fact of the matter is that we've had health scares already that the government has not dealt with properly. Remember the Chick-fil-A, which caused us millions of man-hours lost. And a lot of that was due to the fact that the government did not prepare us. They were not transparent about it. The whole dengue thing, I mean, I think we caught on late to it because initially there was a lot of denial that was taking place. So, you know, we're hoping that the government will take this one seriously, not think about it from a political point of view and think that they have to appease persons by denying that the thing is taking place, because a denial will not help. It does not change the circumstances at other time, at any time. So, you know, we have to ensure that we demand transparency, and we also have to ensure that we're mature enough to understand that you don't criticize a government for something like health. You know, we need to support them. We can't have the opposition, for example, saying that the reason why there's an outbreak is because the government is not adequately prepared. No, this is a serious situation like education and crime that we need everyone to come together on. So hopefully there will be a lot of transparency around this and we will address the problems before they arise. Well, that's our show for today. I want to say thanks to our production team and of course you, our sponsors and viewers, for staying with us on this 150th episode of On Point. That's our show for today. I'm your host, Dennis Chung, saying see you next week.
On Point was brought to you by Dodge & Global.